Last week I was at the Hay Literary Festival and I was on a panel talking about Welsh politics. Also on the panel was a Reform Senedd member. Now this was a senior Senedd member. They are part of the shadow cabinet, so an important person within Reform in Wales. And we were talking about the Crown Estate. So if you don't know, the Crown Estate is basically the land owned by the King in Wales, and the money that's generated from that goes to the Treasury in London. In Scotland, it's different because it's devolved. The Scottish government get the money from that land, whereas in Wales, that money goes to Westminster. And we were asked a question: do you think that Wales should have the Crown Estate? Do you think that should be devolved? And this was his response. Now, I'll show you the video, but bear in mind, I find it quite hard to control my face.
But my result being, I don't think it should be devolved, for the simple reason being, if you devolve it, you've got to set up an office then to run it in Wales. And we're not very good in Wales at being efficient in running things. So the moment you devolve something to Wales, you've got to set up an office to administer it. Then you've got to have a minister in government to deal with it. And I'm afraid to say, I do not think that's the right way to deal with it.
So we're not very good in Wales at being efficient at running things. Now, I think it's worth saying that it isn't crazy or anti-Wales to not support the devolution of the Crown Estate. Like, there are arguments to be made about not devolving it. So you can argue that it would divide up the market, whereas it's easier to push forward deals when it's England and Wales. That's an argument that you can plausibly make. You could also argue that it would be a distraction, that process of devolving it, from what the Welsh Government should be focusing on. Now, I don't necessarily agree with those arguments, but they are completely legitimate arguments to make, and I discuss them a lot in my book. But we really need to address this idea that Wales is uniquely incapable of running its own affairs. Yeah, this can be devolved in Scotland, England can manage it, but the Welsh, they are not capable of being efficient. It's a retrograde, patronising state of mind, which we should always push back on when it comes from outside of Wales, but it's particularly damaging when it comes from politicians who say that they want to lead Wales. This idea that we are not capable of doing stuff is something that we need to just shove in the bin where it belongs. I think more than anything, this just indicates how Reform are deeply hostile to treating Wales as a thing in and of itself. They're really hostile to the idea of Wales having devolution, of having its own parliament. They don't really believe they're ever going to lead the next Welsh Government. If you thought you could lead the next Welsh Government, why would you not want that Welsh Government to be equipped? It's like if me and another person were both going for the same job and I was asked in the interview, do you think this job should be well paid? And I said, no, I don't think it should be well paid. You wouldn't do that if you believed you could get that job. It doesn't seem like Reform believe they could lead the next Welsh Government. Crown Estate is actually a really interesting topic for discussion, and if you want, I can do another video on that. Just drop a mention in the comments if that's something you're interested in. Cover all sorts of stuff about Welsh politics all the time. Me and my team, we run a newsletter called the Will Hayward Newsletter. Give it a Google to find out what's really happening in Wales. Thanks.